My guest today is Jonny Durgan, a double can Lion winning writer director for his work in commercials, spending almost 15 years working at some of the world's best advertising agencies, creating work for some of the biggest brands such as Audi, Adidas, KFC, and Sipsmith Gin. Well, he made his first short film as writer director called Somewhere I've Been, and it stars Sheila Reid, Lindsey, Coulson, and John Love. And it showed at festivals here and abroad, and now he's back with his second effort, GSW. Now, GSW is a heart pounding 7-minute short film. So let's welcome award winning filmmaker Jonny Durgan to the show. Welcome, Jonny.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I tell you what, when I meant heart pounding, it's also heart stopping. Uh, a little pun there, play on words for this film. But wow, I I love this film. I love this film so much. So where did the idea come from for GSW? And please explain to the audience what GSW stands for.
Well, firstly, thank you for your kind words. It's always a bit of a mystery to how your work's ever going to be, land with people. So thank you for that. But GSW is an acronym, it's medical speak for gunshot wound. And the idea came to me. Both my parents are medical professionals. My mum was an A&E nurse, or ER nurse in America for a good portion of my childhood, and she always had stories about big serious accidents and high pressure situations and things like that. So the seed was kind of always in my mind about doing something based on a medical emergency. She wasn't a paramedic, but the idea of having your having to deal with high pressure situations with involving a family member, which is part of this story, was quite a kind of I felt a quite rich area to kind of do a film about, really. So that's how it all started. And just to kind of bit of context of the story, the person the paramedic is dealing with is a suspected school shooter at the school her child goes to. So my son, he's only 4 years old. He was starting school, so I must have had something in me where I was worried about him, or I was scared about him being out of my care and starting school. It wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened to be came to the surface when I was writing, really. So I think all those elements came together to create this.
Well, you cover some elements in this film.
Mm.
Duty, oath, grace, and judgment. Uh, do you believe that medical professionals uh, face these things on a daily basis?
I think when emotions are running high, um, you either have to stay true to your profession or stay true to your personality or your duty to your family. And it's a really interesting question because the two characters in this piece, the two paramedics, they both take a very different decision. Really, one was, you know, judgmental, and the other one was, we don't know all the facts, what could happen and things like that. So that was a nice duality of the two characters to pull them apart a little bit. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, and I loved the stark contrast of both characters
Mm.
because there's a scene when both paramedics hear the description of the suspect over the radio,
Mm.
and they look at their patient in the back of
Mm.
the ambulance. The sound you added to that scene of the heart ticking monitor, that sound does two things. It shows that time is of the essence, and it also shows what decision are you going to make in an instant, right or wrong. So you really put us on the edge of our seat there.
Well, yeah, thank you for saying so. It was all really down to Isaac, our sound designer, who really brought that element to it. I kind of only briefed him so much stuff, but he took it to a whole other level. And when we had James, the composer, add his level to it, it just knocked it up another one again. So I was very lucky and fortunate to work with two really talented people in that field because they elevated this film so much that I could never have done by myself.
Yeah, now you have, of course, you have the two actresses. You have Genevieve, who plays Beth, and an experienced paramedic, while Kaya plays Joe, a paramedic who seems to be at the very start of her career.
Yeah.
And Joe has never really worked up into the area of intense pressure, and it shows. So
Mm.
again, there are these two contrasts, and then Genevieve, Genevieve has seen it all. She makes the decision instantly. I should say Beth, so that the character's name is Beth.
Mm.
And as the years of experience pile up, she slowly becomes judge and jury in some cases, which I can, I guess, in a way, understand that when you have years of experience working in high pressure situations. But with her, there's the term in medicine in which we call the God complex. I feel that she's reached that element where she has that God complex, but she may or may not admit to it. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think the idea of somebody harming your child makes all kind of medical procedure and professionalism just disappear. And for me, knowing with my child at school, if this was me, I'd do exactly the same as she would, to be honest. Yeah, it's a good question. I think she definitely got that God complex that comes out in this situation. Yeah.
Now with Joe, because she's just starting her career, she's literally living by the Hippocratic oath
Mm.
to do no harm. And, lives are to be saved regardless who the person is and what they may have done. And that shows on her side, which creates this extreme, intense situation in the film. I literally went back to watch the film before our interview again, and the emotion that you created in this film, I can absolutely believe that the audience, when they see this film, they're choosing sides. And I'm sure you've
Yeah.
probably heard that a lot.
Yeah, I have. And when I first watched it with an audience, other than the people involved in the project, you could hear everyone gasping at the right times, and kind of the feeling that of everyone going, "Oh yeah, I'd do the same. Kill the guy. He's a bad guy." So I felt validated by being in a room with lots of people all feeling the same thing, and then obviously events deteriorate and change from there. But it felt like it hit the right beats with everybody, and the emotions were stirred up in the right way. So I was really pleased.
Well, you set the audience up because of the scene when both paramedics hear the description of the suspect over the radio, and then they look at the patient. And I mean, just that scene alone, you're literally sitting there going, now what? Because for a 7-minute short film, it seemed way longer than
Mm.
7 minutes, because
Yeah,
you kick us off from the beginning and you take us to the end, and there's no stopping. There's no time to catch your breath. And it is so it is so powerful. And in that very instance, you show that we can cross a line based on personal judgment, that once you cross it, there's no coming back.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely that. And also, once you made a decision, you got to deal with the ramifications of the decision as well. So it's not just even in the moment. You can feel the ripple effect going on afterwards, not just in that moment, but you can imagine after the film ends, there'll be inquiries and there'll be discussions and there'll be medical people looking into what had happened and all this kind of thing. But maybe I'll say that for the future.
Well, there's that camera shot, right after they hear it on the radio of the description of the shooter, which the patient in the ambulance fits it to a T.
Mhm.
But it's the camera shot on Joe when she slowly looks at Beth.
Mhm.
I mean, that look, what shocked me about the look was Joe already knew.
Mm.
And now she's trying to diffuse Beth's internal judgment and get her back to being a paramedic. On Kaya's side, that was a very, very strong performance.
Oh, she was incredible. She was so incredible. In fact, there was a little line of dialogue actually, which we actually cut out on the day because she did it in a look. And her performance, I mean, just a note about the actors itself. We only shot for one day, and it felt equally stressful that it would be in a paramedic situation. Well, not really, but it was we had to fit a lot in a very short space of time. And having actors who just nailed take after take, it made my life so much easier. And when you're checking the clock and doing your shot list and things, and you're getting through everything really, really well. It's nothing I did really. It's just down to everyone in their performances. So I can only give them credit for that.
Yeah, I could tell that both actresses are very, very experienced in their craft, and it shows in every frame of this film. And with Beth, she became judge, jury, and executioner, and
Yeah,
she let her emotions cloud her judgment. But it was a flaw that every one of us are capable of.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, so when the audience sees her reaction, I can see where probably the majority of the audience in that moment would be siding with Beth.
Mm,
The other
mm,
side may be siding with Joe because I was looking at it like, oh my gosh, if she does what she's thinking, you can't go back from that. And I felt bad for Joe because she's just starting her career,
mm.
and that whatever decision Beth makes could be a mark on her.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. She's fresh out of being like education and things like that, and she would have all the kind of the theory in her mind. But when you kind of put them together with an experienced paramedic who's seen it all, like you said earlier, seen it all, done it all, and every situation is um, she just goes into it completely differently. For Joe, I think it was an awakening for her of how things really could be. And it's not in a classroom anymore, and you've got to make these snap decisions. And I feel like her character, after the credits roll, will be kind of dealing with this for a long time.
Oh yeah, well here was the thing about Kaya's acting. And ladies and gentlemen, when you get the opportunity to see GSW, you have to watch Kaya's performance. Both actresses, stellar. I mean, off the charts, amazing. With Kaya, what I noticed is how she allowed her eyes to tear up, but never spilling a tear. It was a cross between fear,
Mm.
fight, and oh my gosh, what are you doing? All at the same
Yeah.
time. But I went back to watch the scene when we hear the description on the radio. The way you allowed the time to linger before we hear the truth over the police radio, it was increasing the emotion of that moment. I
Mm.
counted at least 13 seconds. You kept the audience in complete suspense. It was literally a heart-stopping moment. And was that why you wanted that time to linger?
Yeah, definitely was. I wanted everyone to be kind of without a doubt about what was happening because when Beth or Genevieve's character turns to the camera, you see everything coming to her as much as well. So you've seen Kaya in her performance, she gets it, and then it slowly, then the next person gets it, and then the camera goes down, and then we all get it. It was very much a design that way by between myself, the Rory, our DOP, and Ollie, our editor, to kind of just drip feed that kind of information. And we took out any dialogue that we had before, and we just let that linger, and it really, really works, I think.
Oh, it does. And the thing was, is I went back when it came over the radio about the shooter's description. So I slowly went frame by frame when it got to the patient in the back of the ambulance, and I'm like, okay, Light blue shirt, dark trousers, he's bald, and oh, there's the tattoo on the arm. And
Mm.
that way, I'm looking at all the elements with him so I could go back and watch Beth's reaction, Joe's reaction, and I mean, I mean, it is so heart stopping. But tell me, how did you come to cast Genevieve O'Reilly and Kaya? And how do you pronounce her last name? Brame?
Brahim, yeah, Kaya Brahim, she's brilliant. Yeah. Well, with Genevieve, we were very lucky. We worked with a casting director called Emma Garrett, who's fantastic, and she read the script. She came on board, and she said, "Right, give me some ideas." And I sent her a list, and at the top of the list it said, "People who we will never get, but I want you to try." And Genevieve was on this list, and she came back to us really quickly, and she said, "Let's have a call." And I jumped on a call with her, and she said, "If we can do it in a particular week, we shot at the end of May." She said, "I have a week. I finished the press tour for Andor. Then I'm in London for a week, is where we shot. And then I go to Australia the week after to do a different drama. If you can do it in that week, then we're on." And of course, at the time, I said, "Definitely, yeah, Genevieve, we can work it. It's perfect. Yeah, all works for us." As soon as I put the phone down to Genevieve, picked up the phone to the producer, "Guys, we're right. We've got to get to panic stations now. We've got to get everything ready." But I think the beauty of the piece being in an ambulance, it was one location. We didn't have big unit moves, anything like that, so we could ramp it up quite quickly. And we have contact, or rather, Harvey and Mark, the producers. They, super experienced. Harvey's an Oscar nominee, so they knew a lot of people to get this going very quickly. And then Kaya, I'd seen her in a few other things on TV, on British TV, and I knew again when we approached her, I was like, I'm crossing everything because she was the one I really wanted. And she said she was free and available, and she jumped on board straight away. So yeah, really, really lucky. And they both did me a huge favor as well in terms of time and their fees and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, really privileged.
So, what did they think of the script when they read it?
I think Genevieve, when I had the call with her, she was like, "This is remarkable." I think her being a parent as well, you feel an extra layer of kind of the pull of family ties and that kind of thing. And I think I hope that they found all the suspense there and the story there and the moral questions and things like that. Yeah, I'm just really glad that they did, because they made the film what it is. I think I can't really imagine anybody else doing it now.
No,
They're
no, not at all. Because with Genevieve, though, her character
mm,
comes across as, yes, experienced, but she's icy. And I think and I think I know why. Because she's seen this before. She's been in intense situations. She knows what gunshot wounds are. Uh, but with Kaya playing Joe, total opposite. She's young in the very beginning of her career. She's still dealing with human emotions. She's not been in the situation enough to where her senses become dulled or numb, which can happen in the medical industry because you do have to put a lot of that aside and not allow it to get into your head and to, well, I guess mess up your career in a way or your skill set. And it's kind of like what Beth told Joe in the film. Remember your training. I mean,
mm,
she was just
mm,
like, bam, bam, bam. I've done this 1,000 times. I could do this with my eyes closed. Joe was still apprehensive. Like she had a
mm,
hard time trying to find the blood pressure or the heartbeat. She didn't know what to do with the little piece that Beth handed her. She's like, okay, like, where am I supposed to do this? She's not
mm.
used to thinking on her feet in a life saving moment. And the contrast in a 7-minute film was, I mean, was brilliance 10 times over.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the way I hoped it was going to go was that you see them almost cross over in their positions, because Kaya starts off as unsure. She's not really quite with everything, and by the end of it, she's the one who holds her morals and she keeps it firm to it, stays true to who she is. Whereas Beth, Genevieve's character, she starts off completely in control, almost to being a bit cynical about a lot of things because she's seen everything and done everything. But then it's her that loses control. So they really kind of swap over in their positions. And I have to say, Genevieve made a lot of choices about making her a bit more icy than she was on the page. She was much more kind of a giving, nurturing character. She she almost barks at her in the actual film, but in the script, she was much more like grabbing her hand, giving her a pep talk. But she was like that's too much of a kind of a motherly thing, and I think it's best if she just stays professional and down the line with stuff. And it made it so much better for it. So again, credit to Genevieve.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I understand that you changed the aspect ratio of the film when you were filming the outside of the ambulance shots versus the inside ambulance shots. First, why was this important to the overall creation of the story, but also keeping the emotion intact?
Well, when you're inside an ambulance versus outside, the opening shot is a really wide shot of the ambulance going through the streets, and that's where we were in a wider aspect ratio. But when we're in it, we kind of knocked it in a bit because the whole idea that we wanted to create was around claustrophobia and really being in the thick of it. The camera is really in there with you. And by having a smaller aspect ratio, it just felt a bit of a cheap trick, but it worked. It was a bit like you're just a bit more tight in there with it. And, it was very much handheld when we're inside, whereas when we're outside, it's a very steady shot over the top of the ambulance. So it was much more of a contrast and really kind of make you feel like you're really in the thick of it a bit more.
So, how did you handle the continuous shot with Beth inside the ambulance? She's got her cell phone. She's trying to get a call out, but she goes from the inside of the ambulance to the outside. It looks like one continuous shot. How did you handle the aspect ratio there?
Well, we kept it actually. We kept it as the inside, same as the inside of the ambulance, but it was all down to Rory, our DOP. He kind of designed that little shot, and he's a super experienced guy. He's worked on a lot of features and things like that. He was just, I don't think we should cut here. We should just stay with her and kind of, it's all in Genevieve's face. He said, as soon as you cut away or move away from that, you lose something. So we always try to keep that part of the film intact as one kind of shot. So it really works, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely worked to perfection. I have to ask because we're towards the ending scene, and one of the scenes that I really loved was when they both hear the description of the shooter, and then from that moment on the sequence starts. Mm-hmm. When Beth stiff arms Joe. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and in a way, I looked at that scene. I'm like, okay, fight or flight. Her adrenaline is going to be at its highest level here, which means she's going to have a little bit more strength than she would normally have in a regular situation. And she stiff arms Joe and holds her with one arm up against the inside of that ambulance. So she and the thing was about that scene, when Beth was looking at the man in the ambulance, he flatlines. And so I'm watching, he flatlines, but Beth doesn't stop, and she goes, "Which room did you shoot up?" I'm like, he flatlined. Why are you talking to him now? So was it more of just of creating that sense? Her adrenaline is at an all-time high, and in a way, she's not actually thinking clearly.
It's exactly that. We wanted it to be a bit of a haze, like for her. She's wanting answers, but she wants to kill the guy. She's really not quite sure how to react. It's adrenaline's kicking in, her blood's up. She's got to deal with Kaya's character. Probably some stuff kind of come through the radio still. So she is just all over the place and maybe even a bit confused with everything. You see her ripping his oxygen mask off. You think, is she doing that to kill him? Is she doing that to talk to him, to hear him? All this kinds of stuff. it was all down to Genevieve again. She was really great, and I think with the height difference as well, when she was kind of holding Kaya against that wall, I thought, I'm actually believing this. It didn't feel like she was faking it. And they were both really went for it as well in the performances. So they sold it to me, and I was behind a monitor. And I was like, I had to go check on them afterwards, thinking, did you take it too far? Is everyone okay? But they were like, Jonny, we're acting. I was like, okay. But
I believed every moment of that scene. I mean, when she stiff armed her and held her up against the wall, I'm like, that's for
yeah,
real. Because
yeah,
you could see the tenseness. And I mean, I would just watch the film over just to see that scene again because it is so good. But then
yeah.
then Beth's character. So you allow the flat line to linger and she backs off, and the look on her face says so much because now she's like, did I just it's like there's multiple questions in the air. Did I just end my career? How do I report this? Do I get Joe to lie for me? And Joe's in a way, it's almost like her mind is blank because she's like, one question would be, is my career over because of what Beth has done? Or do I report against her? And I'm like, wow, you talk about a million questions at the end of this film.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny you should say that because we original script in draft one, we had Joe picking up the walkie-talkie, and she's about to say, and that's when we cut. But actually, it kind of revealed too much of what Joe was gonna do. So, did she keep quiet or not? So we chopped it a little bit earlier because we wanted to kind of keep that ambiguity about what she's going to do, what they're both going to do. But you're right. There's probably a million things that could happen after the credits roll. So it's definitely a conscious choice to finish where we did.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that alternate ending, it could have worked, because then we would all be thinking, did
Mm.
she or didn't she? And I think either one would work, but I love the way it ended because um I don't know, it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So,
Thank you.
how many screenings have you had of this film?
It's played three times so far. Our first one was in the middle of this. Sorry, the start of December. No, it wasn't. It was the start of September, the 7th of September, and what we're on now, middle of October. And we accepted into 11 festivals in that time. So it's going really well, really quickly, and really early. And we found out today we're in the Holly Shorts London festival as well. So they come in thick and fast. So I'm really actually a bit overwhelmed by how well it's done so quickly because yeah, it's just a little film I wrote in a room by myself once upon a time, and now it's out there in the big wide world. So yeah, it's doing well.
So what has been the overall audience's reaction and what type of questions have you been getting?
A lot of people come up to me and swear, so I think that's probably a good thing because they're just so shocked about how it is and what it made them feel. Um, but it's more the emotions. People kind of look at me really wide eyed and really kind of like, wow, that was a bit crazy. It made everyone go a bit of a roller coaster. So that's kind of the overall feeling, which is actually great because that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this film. I can see why this film's been picked up very, very quickly. I mean, it ticks off every single box on how great a short film needs to be to make an impact, and this is one of them. And it's funny because this is the third short film that I've seen in the last 2 years that uses a school shooting as the backdrop.
Mm.
And all three of them that I've seen are very tense.
Right.
and from different perspectives of the story. And that's what I loved about GSW. It is, we don't think of what is going on with the medical professionals that, they could be taking care of trying to keep a school shooter alive and not knowing that it's the school shooter.
Mm. Mm.
But
Yeah.
I want to ask you something about the description, because I think the description that comes over the radio plays two sides. One, okay, they know what the shooter looks like, but it's also the same type of attire that a school teacher would wear.
I'm glad you said that, because that was deliberate. The amount of times I rewrote that to be just vague enough, or it could be a number of people, like blue t-shirts and jeans. Everybody wears those. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed that, because it gave me a lot of headaches.
Well, even with the tattoo, because I'm thinking, well, the teacher could have been in the Navy, could have been in the Army, uh, that, so, but in that high pressure situation, they hear the word tattoo, they don't hear the description, they just like tattoo and they look down, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy. Because here's what's funny. It didn't matter if it was a light blue shirt, didn't matter if it was the dark pants, it didn't matter if the guy was bald. I think the tattoo was the
Mm.
trigger when they looked down at him.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and I think you kind of make judgments of people by how they look, and I think he looks like a handy guy, and but somebody actually came to me after one of the screenings and said, was he a victim of the actual shooter? Was he a roving shooter? And this guy tried to intervene because he's quite a big fella. He could have been a hero. And I thought that was a really interesting interpretation of it, actually, because that was sort of in my mind, but it wasn't explicit in the film. But they came to that independently as well, which was really good.
Well, yeah, and that's how I looked at him. I
Yeah,
looked at him as, okay, this guy is either a school teacher, maybe he's a school administrator, could be the principal, maybe he either got, of course, he got shot by the guy, or maybe he was trying to stop the guy,
yeah,
and then for some weird reason ends up in this ambulance.
yeah.
You
That was
know,
in my head. Yeah, that was in my head as this kind of the backstory, but I try not to make it too spoon feeding people. I thought I'd leave enough of a gap to kind of let them fill it in themselves if they wanted to. So yeah.
yeah, I love it. So with the ambulance, was this a prop piece or did you really get a real ambulance?
It was an old ambulance that a prop company had recently bought. It was decommissioned. So it was old working ambulance and things like that. I think it was only maybe a year out of service by the time it became a prop ambulance. So it's a bit of both, genuine, but not really.
Wow. And when I watched this film, the one thing I did figure out was that you shot this in one day because there was no reason to stretch it over a 2 or 3 day film shoot because I mean, and I agree with you, everything must have just clicked because the acting is off the charts stellar. The storyline is just brilliant. And the way you filmed it with the cinematography, everything just works. The sound mixing, I mean, and that sound mixing played a huge role in this film.
Yeah, it did. It did. Everyone who worked on this brought something really, really good to the table, and I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. There were Rory, particularly our cinematographer. He was fantastic. He held my hand in things I didn't know, my knowledge gaps and things like that. And the sound design, Isaac and James, the composer, even James, he put in like little sharp breaths on the drum beat, so it sounds like somebody's trying to catch the breath and survive. Things like that I would never have thought of. That everyone who added more and more as we went along, and it really came together really well.
Well, with GSW, because this film came in around the first part of September, are you BAFTA or Oscar qualified with this film?
Well, we didn't really have any awards in mind, to be honest. I just let it out into the world when it was ready. So I was overwhelmed by how well it's done. And as we kind of did a few festivals that were BIFA ones, people were like, you should do this for the BAFTA ones, you should do this for the Oscar ones. And now we're in San Jose and St. Louis, that are both Oscar ones, in a few weeks. And then we've got in the fall festival, which is BAFTA qualifying. We have one more before the BAFTA deadline to do it this year. But our plan, now that things are picking up, we're just going to kind of hopefully go through 2026 and then be eligible next time around. But I have to say that even this kind of talk of these kind of awards is really, really baffling to me, because I didn't really make it with that in mind. So I'm just glad that it's connecting with people in a way that other people are having those conversations.
Well, this film puts you in the top of
Oh,
all the
thank you.
films that I've seen. And I agree with you, because you came in so late. I would be aiming for the 2027. Of course, you have to go through 2026 to be eligible for the 2027, if it's BAFTAs or Oscars. I agree with that plan. But wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonny Durgan's short film GSW, which stands for Gunshot Wound, is about Beth, a paramedic dealing with a victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So we think. However, the situation escalates when news comes over the radio of a school shooting nearby, the same school her son attends. Now, the shooter is still on the loose, and he matches the description of the man on the stretcher. GSW gives us multiple things to consider. Do we uphold our duty, possibly an oath that we have made? Do we show mercy, grace, or do we show judgment? GSW is a fast-paced 7-minute short film that actually really seems longer than 7 minutes, because it feels like you're watching a feature film, and I just love it. Now, actresses Genevieve O'Reilly and Kaya Brame give absolutely brilliant performances as paramedics with different degrees of experience. Basically, a veteran versus a rookie. I see this short film going a very long way during its film festival run, and if you are attending a film festival in the future and GSW is going to be shown, you have to be in the audience to experience the tension, the emotion, the moral dilemma of two people who feel they are justified in their actions. This film will leave the audience thinking about their own mortality, which is a good thing, or I should say morality, because how many of us actually think about what would we do if placed in the same situation? Jonny, I want to thank you so much for reaching out to me and to share this incredible short film with me today, because I'm going to remember this one for a long time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And again, ladies and gentlemen, GSW is in the film festival circuit. And again, if you're at a film festival and GSW is there, make sure you're sitting inside the theater. You're going to see something absolutely amazing in cinema. GSW. Keep those 3 letters on your mind. And for the rest of you, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.